I've been thinking, knowing that we must make mistakes in order to grow, why do most of us avoid risks? Why are we so afraid to leave our comfort zones? Today, we will talk about how being brave always entails the risk of failing with the secondhand advice from the book Rising Strong by Brene Brown. Maybe you have suffered some significant setbacks. You lost your job possibly, or figured out that your partner is cheating, or perhaps you have avoided the big roadblocks, instead withstanding plenty of small irritants like having your credit card stolen or going utterly blank in the middle of a presentation. You probably recognize the feeling of stumbling as a result of some unforeseeable circumstance or mistake you made. Some people call it falling, others call it failing. Yet, in any case, it's essential to the human experience. However, instead of just avoiding anything that requires bravery, you'll discover that you can, in fact, learn how to rise strong. Today, we'll learn how permission slips can help you identify your feelings, how to cultivate awareness with a shitty first draft, and what expectations or dreams you may need to relinquish. Frequently, we find ourselves in situations where we need to take risks. We tend to avoid these situations at all costs because we don't like to look foolish. Risking vulnerability this way and failing can be challenging. We might feel embarrassed, discouraged, or even decide never to leave our comfort zones again. Yet remember, the best place to learn is outside your comfort zone. It's crucial that you can recoup from failure. How? By rising strong. Rising strong is a multi-step process that can help you be vulnerable, yet come out with confidence. We'll discover the fundamental principles of rising strong, which you can adjust to your own life. Before diving in, though, there are 3 points we need to address. First, you must devote yourself to failure in order to rise strong. Second, keep in mind that you aren't the only one experiencing failure. And finally, recognize that rising strong will not only alter your life. Your experiences after defeat can have an extreme impact on those around you. So, how exactly do we rise strong? The rising strong process is separated into 3 steps: the reckoning, the rumble, and the revolution. The initial step is the reckoning. This means that people who rise strong are willing and able to reckon with their feelings. When something takes place that sets off a psychological change in them, they acknowledge and recognize this change. Then they get curious about why it takes place and how their emotions connect to their thoughts and actions. The second step is the rumble. Rumbling is all about understanding your weak points. What stories do you tell yourself about your suffering? You are doing a great job at rumbling if you reality check these stories and dig deep into subjects such as shame, guilt, and forgiveness in order to learn more about yourself. The third step of rising strong is the revolution. This happens when you take the lessons learned from rumbling with your stories and turn them into positive changes in your life. Let's explore each of these steps in detail. Do you know people that seem to simply roll with the punches? These people all share one common trait: the ability to reckon with their emotions. You can also do this by taking 2 actions. The first action is recognizing your feelings, something that's easier said than done. Why? Because we have trained ourselves to reject our own emotions. When a feeling of frustration or rage washes over you, you often find yourself trying to bury the emotion with thoughts or diversions. Yet, this is useless because if we try to suppress our uncomfortable feelings, they just come out explosively in the future. We can avoid this by permitting ourselves to really feel. Literally, write yourself an actual permission slip saying, permission to be delighted, have fun, be silly. The second step of reckoning with your emotions is investigating what's taking place inside you and why. Begin by asking yourself basic questions such as, why am I being so harsh regarding everyone around me today? What's bothering me? Question the stories you tell yourself. Most people are continuously making up stories to make sense of the world and their place within it. We do this to feel a sense of belonging and purpose. However, these stories cause limiting beliefs and can trap us. The objective of rumbling aids us in keeping these stories honest and real. By questioning our stories and being truthful with ourselves, we can learn much more about the way we are in the world. Generally, when we feel discomfort, anger, or disappointment, we desperately need to make sense of why. The simplest way to do this is to tell ourselves a story that connects the struggle we're experiencing today to all the unhappiness we've endured in the past. This leads us to believe that we have been suffering our entire life and will continue to in the future. Rumbling helps us to restructure this narrative. The best way to do this is to write out your stories into a shitty first draft. This is a harsh, uncensored, and emotionally charged account of the way you view your struggle. The easiest way to start your shitty first draft is to make a fill-in-the-blank list. For example, the story I'm making up is, my feelings tell me, my body feels, my thinking seems, ... and so on. This exercise gives us a different perspective on our stories. When we see it on paper, it's easier to get some distance. We'll be able to catch our own fabrications and traps we've set for ourselves. These traps are precisely what make us feel stuck in life. So the more aware you are of them, the less likely you will fall for them. Rumbling with expectations can help us avoid discouragement. When was the last time you thought something like, I knew this would happen? You were most likely experiencing some sort of disappointment. Whether concerning an upcoming vacation or how our kids react to our loving gestures, our expectations often subconsciously come into play. And while having expectations is often exciting, it's usually the source of all that disappointment. When reality doesn't match our expectations, we get resentful. Rumbling can assist us in handling disappointment. What do you expect of your kids, your coworkers, or your spouse? What do you expect of yourself? Why do you expect those things? It isn't until we feel disappointed that we realize we even had expectations. Expectations are also crucial when it comes to rumbling with forgiveness. Family members and partners are terrific sources of love, but they can be sources of pain as well. Forgiveness is greater than merely forgetting a painful act of betrayal. Sometimes it's about letting go of certain expectations. Maybe it's time for you to quit expecting your parents to be people who never mess up, and instead acknowledge them as individuals with their own struggles and weak points. Or maybe you need to say goodbye to your desire for an ideal, argument-free marriage. This is what allows us to let go of problems as well as move forward with our relationships. Have you Ever had one of those moments where a person says something and it really sticks with you? This happened to Brene at a fundraiser to support the homeless. The pastor of her church said something that shook her. When you look away from a homeless person, you diminish their humanity. These words instantly brought forth an undiscovered corner of her own behavior to light. Observing that she felt discomfort at the pastor's words, Brene started to reckon with herself. Privilege and judgment reared their ugly heads when she understood that she also looked away from homeless people on the street. She then created her shitty first draft that said, "I'm not helping other people enough. I feel shame about how much I have and how little I do, so I can't look the folks I should be helping in the eye. Do more." Brene was rumbling with her privileged life. She was also rumbling with her own bias. From a young age, she thought that asking for help suggests weakness. Realizing that she turned her nose up at homeless people for requesting assistance led Brene to another epiphany. She realized that asking for help isn't a weakness. As a matter of fact, it is a critical component of the rising strong process. Getting up after failure takes guts, and it also takes even more courage to ask someone for help. Let's review. Rising strong is a process with 3 steps: the reckoning, the rumble, and the revolution. The reckoning involves acknowledging one's own emotions and getting curious about them. Rumbling is about examining the stories we tell ourselves. Finally, the revolution is the essential change we experience when rising up, much more confident and courageous than before. Be brave, fail, and rise again. Have you ever had to change your expectations of yourself or others? Have you failed and gotten back up again? Comment below with your best advice. Please be sure to like and subscribe as well. And thank you for watching. We often think of successful people as being in overnight success. We want to believe that they are just naturally gifted and talented. However, many have failed miserably, but have been able to rise strong and succeed beyond their wildest dreams. Here are a few examples. Martin Luther King Jr. got a C in his public speaking course in seminary school. Steven Spielberg was rejected from the same film school 3 different times. Albert Einstein was a poor student and actually failed his school entrance exam. And Katy Perry only sold 200 copies of her first album. If these examples don't prove that you too can rise strong after failing, I don't know what would convince you.